So I'll be speaking about power of visual storytelling. Just to start, for those who don't know you, just a little bit about me and my story. I am very passionate about women telling their stories through video and photography and becoming more visible by sharing their stories. I have 10 years experience in film and TV, video production and photography, and I also do one-to-one trainings. Um, I have a YouTube series called Women Stories, where I facilitated women sharing their stories by homemade videos and video chats with me. I'm also an independent filmmaker. I have films screened all around the world, and I'm also a member of WIBN, Kensington and Chelsea Group. So I would like to start by doing a visibility test. I would like you to ask yourself, how often do you post photos and videos of yourself? You can drop it in the chat or write it down for yourself, but I want you to think about how often, how regular do you show yourself in videos and photos, and also on your website. And think about your profile picture, perhaps. Do you have a picture that you take as a selfie? Do you have a picture with someone, maybe a family member or your pet, or do you just have a logo? What is your profile picture on your social platforms, or maybe on your website about page? Is there a picture of you? I'm asking this because I want you to think about whether being visible, if this is something that you would like to do, is there something that is stopping you from sharing yourself, and what format do you decide to show yourself in these platforms? So today, for the next 25 minutes or so, I'll be speaking about what visual storytelling is, how you can use it to elevate your brand. We're going to look at some examples of visual stories. We're going to look at how you can find what your story is and share it in an intentional and consistent way, and some tips on creating visual content, as well as some tips on getting in front of the camera. So what is storytelling? So visual storytelling is one of the oldest form of communication, and we know this through cave paintings, and today we are communicating visually through photography, video, illustration, VR technologies, and so on. Through digital platforms, we need to make ourselves visible because we want to be memorable, and visual storytelling is the most effective way we can do this. Our brains want information packaged in a form of story, and because we relate to the situations through stories and by imagining ourselves in those situations. So here are some stats for you. So 90% of the information that is transmitted to our brain is visual, and 94% of posts that have visuals on them get more engagement compared to those that don't have visuals. So we need to find a way of telling our story in a visual way. So when you're thinking of your story, maybe make it easy for yourself. So when you decide what your story is day to day, you want to find a way that you can document and tell it in a way that works for you. And when it becomes a habit, it will become much more easier. And all these technologies are there to support us. Our phones, the social platforms, these are making things easier for them and for us. And we need to adapt to this way of telling our story, and we need to find what that story is that we want to share. And we all have a story. We just need to find what it is and share it in the best way. So there is a really nice quote by Brené Brown. I'm a big fan of her. She's a researcher, and she's a motivational speaker as well. She has done lots of research about courage and vulnerability. And even though we think about courage and vulnerability sometimes as opposites, they're actually the same thing. She has this quote, owning our story and loving ourselves is the bravest thing that we will ever do. So when you think about sharing your story, maybe think about being, when you present your story, you are being vulnerable, but you're also being brave because you're accepting to be imperfect, and you're opening your heart, and you're sharing your story from your heart. This way of sharing your story will always bring more engagement, and that is what is the most important when you're telling your story visually as well. I'm gonna show some examples. I picked Greta Thunberg just because we all know her and she's doing some amazing work and she's one of the strongest personal brands out there, but also because I wanted to share someone who's not necessarily doing something similar to our jobs. So she's an environmental activist, and if you look at some of these pictures, maybe you have seen this yellow coat before, and if you look at what she's wearing and how she communicates herself, then you see that this yellow coat maybe immediately as a visual element, it will communicate to us something about the climate, even if we didn't know her. And the way she has the serious looks maybe is about her character, but at the same time, she wants us to take her seriously because climate change is a serious matter. And I'm going to show a picture of her website. This is an example of an immersive experience. Her website, you have at the start, you have this video circulating around her in like a globe shape. And you don't only understand the story from the videos, but from the experience you have, because you're in a position where you're taking action by clicking and how you want to experience this format, and that kind of makes you aware of your position as an individual in changing the road of this global climate crisis situation. So she makes you aware of that by creating this type of experience. And also with the timeline, it makes you feel alarmed. You feel like, okay, we need to take action now. And this kind of visual experience, it has more of an effect through the experience. So you want to take action, and it stays with you in a memorable way this way. I also could not do without using Oprah Winfrey's brand, because she's also one of the best personal brands out there. And we all know how she speaks and how she engages with people. But even just, again, we didn't know her. By looking at her pictures, you sense a certain type of energy. So when you're thinking of your brand, we all have different sides, but we choose to bring across certain sides of ourselves. Her body language, if you look at her body language, her brand is about empathy, and the way she tilts her face even on side, it makes you feel like she's open, she's understanding you, she's listening to you, and she enables people to tell their stories by having this experience, this feeling on people. And she's also super inspirational, and you can even feel that from looking at her pictures, and even from the colors of blue, which represents trust. And so how do you find what your story is? Firstly, you need to ask yourself the right questions. And when you're asking yourself the questions, maybe look out for some emotions, because when certain questions trigger emotions in us, we know that there is something important there, and maybe we should integrate it in our story. And also ask to people around you, our close friends or family, because those people are the ones that will see things that are not necessarily visible to us. One thing that I get a lot of confusion about is what your personal brand is and who you are. How do you distinguish between the two? Because essentially, your personal brand cannot exist without you, but it's not your whole story. We decide certain parts of ourselves and certain parts of communication, and we create it in a way how we want other people to experience us in this particular space. So just trust that you have the rest of the story, but maybe you want to create certain elements of it to create a personal brand. When you're looking at your personal brand story, you want to start by yourself. What are your strengths? What are your values? And how do you want to be known for? And then you think of your purpose. What is it that you're trying to change? What is your purpose? What is your passion? What are you afraid of? And then that will lead you to who your customer is. To give an example, my passion is to help women tell their stories. And those are women who want to be visible. So I know then, okay, my audience, my customer is women who want to be visible. And then I can look at their needs from there. What kind of content will they need to feel more encouraged? And that tells me what kind of communication I should have with them. For instance, I could decide to create content that is entertaining, or I could also decide to create content that will make them empowered. In this case, creating empowering content suits me better because I want them to feel inspired and go and create their own stories. But if my brand value was being fun, then I would perhaps want to entertain them. That doesn't mean I can't make an entertaining content, but you will find certain elements that will work better for you and see what your audience is interested in. So once you know what your story is, what the story you want to put out there, then you want to back it up with research. Start by understanding your market. Maybe look at your competition, what kind of content they're creating, and look at other brands that are not in your industry as well, because you can take certain elements and apply to your brand, and then make yourself distinct from that. Find what is unique to you and write your story from there. And always keep on top of trends, because you will change and your personal brand will change, but also the trends are going to change. So you need to keep up to date and keep getting inspiration. So some tools that you can use for doing this research is, I'll start with Instagram, because on Instagram you can use the hashtags to find whatever is trending, but also you can follow influencers and see what kind of content they're putting out. And I also suggest to look at your competition, but also look at people not in your competition, because then you will be able to not have that emotional experience attached to it. So you will not compare yourself with them, but by looking at brands that are outside your market, then you will be like, okay, without having emotional attachment, you can take some inspiration and see how we can apply it to your content. And then Pinterest is a great tool. I think it's quite underrated. It's very good for creating mood boards and getting inspiration, and you can really get inspired by, for instance, you can put a visual that will then give you some other recommendations. So if you put on a board a photo that you like, it will automatically recommend you other visuals, and then it will build up from there. And you should always ask your audience what they want to see. These you can do in very different formats. You can use Instagram stories to ask them whether you should post a certain picture. For instance, you had a personal branding shoot, you have 2 pictures, you don't know which one will be best, then ask them. Or you created a course and you don't know what your next course should be, maybe ask them what kind of content they will want to see next. You can also use your usual survey forms. Google Forms is a free one to find out what kind of content might interest them. You should look for locations where you might be doing your next shoot or where you want to take pictures. Some of these things I use, but you should also keep an open eye. For instance, if you went for a morning run, maybe you ended up in like near a park, near a street, and then you think it looks visually nice, then take a note of it and go back there to create the content there. Get some magazines. This could be like not print magazines, but also following online publications and maybe picking them in your Pinterest mood board, because these kind of visual stories will inspire you, and maybe someone that influenced you, you will get inspiration for your next photo shoot. And always be open to learn about yourself, because like I said, we're always changing and our brands are changing, and maybe by journaling or by talking to others, you will learn more about what your story can be and how you can keep sharing that. So a final point is bringing your story to life. So once you've created these content, you should always go back and review how it performed and improve it and try different things. You should try maybe a different format that does work for you, but keep it consistent while also trying new things, because maybe at the start it works better to try different things just to see what it is that works for your brand story. But even when you have a certain consistency, you should always bring up something new, because your audience will require that. They will otherwise get bored. And you should always make sure that your content is optimized for different platforms so they can perform better. For instance, on YouTube, maybe you want a long form video, and on Instagram you have to have like a very short video. Some things that you can use is, for instance, if you're regularly taking pictures in your workspace, or maybe you're often creating your tutorials, your content videos on your workspace, you want to make sure that it looks on brand. You want maybe the background, certain props that will communicate what you do, some colors or whatever it is. Or you also want to always wear clothes that are on your brand, and while also keeping it, changing it up time to time. I always recommend for video shoots and photo shoots, for instance, if you don't wear something in normal life, then don't wear it just for a shoot, because it's not going to look natural. And what is most important is that you come across in an authentic way. So for instance, if you don't wear blazers in real life, then don't wear a blazer to a shoot. And keep it different so that people like will see different versions of you, and it will bring some more elements that can be interesting. And props are really good for that. That's why actors always use props, because they will give you different ideas for your content. And you can always try different locations. Maybe that weekend you went to a museum and you want to, by the approach you have with your brand story, you can make it a story that is related to what you are doing. And use different formats. So for instance, if you're making a long form video, you might want to use IGTV or YouTube. But if you're making more entertaining videos, you can share the same information in a different format, but you just need to do some thinking which works best. It can be a mix of all, ideally, but also for some brands, some or for your personality, some of them will work better. And the type of the content is also important. Is it going to be a structured studio shoot, or is it going to be like a vlog style? Is it going to be something that you document in your day? You can have a mix of all of these, but also you might find some of them work better for your brand, so you can stick with that. And learn these skills, because we don't expect non-photographers or videographers to be professionally producing this type of content, but we live in a visual world, and it's important that our content that we create are up to a certain quality, and it shows the best version of yourself. And don't be afraid to work with professionals or even friends. You can create content, for instance, like go for a walk with a friend, they will take pictures for you, you take pictures for them. Or even you can, if you like this, you can shoot your own portraits and videos, and check how they perform, so that you can take from there and bring it to your next content creation. I'll share some tips for content creation. So just to remind you, you want to be yourself, be vulnerable, and don't do anything that doesn't feel natural to you. For instance, if you're making a video, maybe it's your first video you're creating, and you don't want to, you want to be prepared, so you might want to write a script, but you will not want to be sticking to a script because it will not be natural. So just be yourself, and don't be afraid to go back and do it again as you feel more comfortable with it. Keep it consistent. This is not just the visuals, but also the topic. For instance, if I'll give you an example. So if, for instance, this is about how you brand yourself. Some you might be a mother, but you might not use the fact that you're a mother in your brand. So you might call yourself a mompreneur because you associated that with your brand. And you might be a mother, and that will be a great experience for you, but you don't want that to be a part of your brand experience. So maybe you don't share pictures of your family or your kids. But if you decided that that is part of your brand, maybe keep sharing that on a consistent way. And same way, if you're a personal trainer, maybe you're always sharing like exercise with your videos or nutrition videos. But maybe going to a museum is not really related to the type of the content that you're creating. So maybe it doesn't make much sense to share that unless you link it in a certain way. And next one, engage with your community. So like with the surveys and polls, you want to ask them what they want to see, and so that you can create more of it. and make sure you understand certain basics. You can watch some tutorials online, get one-to-one trainings, because here is a picture of me in my desk. This is this exactly same spot, just the opposite of my desk. So we all use Zoom videos now, and sometimes I'm sure a lot of you have seen people, or it might be even you, and there's no judgment, but this is something what we often have, like a window right behind you and a really high, really overexposed light, and that leaves your face in the shadow. And what is that going to tell to the other person? It's just going to look underprepared. It's going to look like you can't have the communication to the best quality. And this is how important it is. It's not just video creation, but you still want, in this day and time, you want to give importance to how you come across visually. And that can be just done by learning how to position yourself. And even if you don't have space in your house to maybe position yourself across the window, maybe you can get one of those ring lights, which only cost 10-20 quids on Amazon. You can have like a little tripod, so so you have your face lit and people will have better experience speaking to you. Think about the formats, because I actually had a prospect I spoke to. She had this problem. She shared a live video of herself, but after she filmed it, she realized it was upside down, so we would look at her like this side, and this is as simple as that. So if by not being aware of how she filmed it, she just had the whole video on other way around. If we have different aspect ratios for different videos, and sometimes on Instagram Reels you have top bits cropped, or your photos, your head is cropped. By learning this chart, you can easily make sure that your content is not that kind of thing that doesn't happen to you. And it's not as difficult as some of you might think. It's just a simple few things that you can learn, and then it will serve you in the long term. Getting in front of the camera, I left this last because this is one of the most important, but also the most terrifying for many people, because it is not something that is natural to us. As human beings, we're used to seeing someone in front of us as opposed to speaking to a camera. We want to be listened, we want to have human reaction. But we're adapting to this new technology and how we communicate. So we shouldn't be afraid to try these things and keep practicing and doing it again and again. And sometimes it can be overwhelming, but it does get easier. And some tips that you can use is, for instance, planning what kind of content you will be creating just before you actually shoot it. So you can dedicate perhaps a day of the week where you will be filming, and then prepare for it both mentally and physically, because our mindset for filming is very different than our mindset of when we're responding to our emails. So maybe plan a couple of different ideas, concepts, and how you're going to be filming it, and shoot it all in one day, and maybe edit them on a different day, so that you get that more energetic version of you on that day whilst filming. And you will dress for it, you will prepare for it, and you will I also recommend that you get enough rest from the day before, and maybe do something that will make you feel better, whether it's going for a run, doing meditation, or whatever it is for you. And pick a space that is that you will associate with this type of thing. So if you're creating your video content regularly on a certain space of your workspace, then you probably want to keep doing it there, because your mind automatically associates it with it, but also you feel comfortable in that space. And if you're filming somewhere that you're not normally filming, then go there beforehand and make sure that you're familiar with the space, because that will make you feel more relaxed. And
Nevra, you've got 2 minutes. 2 minutes left.
Okay, I'm wrapping it up. So don't be afraid to get help. You might want to ask a friend to come and help you on the shoot day, because they will be able to, maybe for the video, they will be able to ask you the questions that will make it more conversational, or just more professional people. Don't be afraid to get consultation and get some tips that will help you in the long term. I want to end by saying you should always focus on the story, because photography and video, yes, the quality is important and those can be learned, but what people always will remember is going to be your story, and how the emotion that will leave that it will leave on other people. And yeah, that's all. I want to thank you for listening to me, and you can always follow me on Instagram, and I shared some regular tips there, and you can ask me your questions via email. And finally, I want to thank WIBN for giving me the opportunity to speak today. And I also want to say, I hope that more women share their stories and become more visible.